Shout out to Cigar Page for great deals on great cigars. Not sponsored by him yet, but maybe soon if I keep this up. Try not to smoke more than like one every 2 weeks. So if I'm really kicking things back into gear, then I'm going to be making more videos than that. Uh, Maybe I'll just have to go on a creative streak each time I smoke one. Anyway, earlier today I was listening to Bill Burr and John Lovitz give each other hell on Bill Burr's podcast from earlier this year. I hadn't listened to it. I hadn't listened to him in a while. Was just, well, either of them, but was just reminded about how hilarious both of those guys are. But also, it led me to think about how funny people like him, like them, can also be vessels for great wisdom. And then I got to thinking about, from back years ago, I was listening to Bill Burr's podcast not long after he started it. And there was a message that came through that I know for sure really reached a lot of people who needed to hear it at the time. And there was a beautiful setup to it, but the main quote that it concluded with went like this: "There's absolutely no risk in chasing a dream, but there's tremendous risk in playing it safe." I think he was responding to someone's email that they wrote in or something, but it's definitely something I've had to remind myself about. And even at the time that message came through, I was at a very pivotal moment because I just quit grad school at LSU in Baton Rouge and had a really cool studio apartment in the attic of this like old historic house in a nice leafy parky type area. Tons of great walking all around, tons of access, not just to campus, but to many little shopping centers and whatnot on foot and biking. And it was just a great little spot. And I wish I could, the bachelor in me wants to just take that studio everywhere I go, But long story short, things weren't really working out for me in terms of grad school at the time. And it's because I took the safe route. I was going to a master's program that was nearby where I was from, even though I knew I didn't need to be living in Louisiana at all, which is where I grew up. That it didn't have that much to offer me. None of the professors were taking to my research interests. Just as far as the curriculum went, I couldn't quite get the classes that I wanted, the seminars that I wanted. I did very well in what I did take, but it just wasn't, the stars weren't aligning, so to speak. So I quit and I reverted to doing what I really wanted to do, what I knew I should be doing, taking a risk, so to speak, which really wasn't a risk, and that was applying to University of Buckingham's master's program in philosophy, studying under Roger Scruton, one of the greatest philosophers of the last century. And I got in, and through many fortunate circumstances, including acquiring all the help that I needed, from my dad and from people and circumstances, I was able to do it. And fortunately, I now, because I took that harder road, so to speak, living in a foreign country for over a year and struggling to get by nevertheless while I was there, but uh, also having that help on the back end, which made it possible. Taking that hard route wasn't really the harder route at the end of the day because I have no regrets about that. I have nothing but gratitude um, toward every part of that experience. And it resulted in me attaining a much more prestigious and uh, qualified degree program than I would have had taking the safe route. And having a letter of recommendation from one of the greatest philosophers of our day. And, although some of that is rooted in pride, I will admit, like just being able to say that I went to a more prestigious school, got a more prestigious degree than a domestic, state funded one. Um, that being as it may, it's still an enhancement to who I am and where I am, uh, and to the circumstances that I'm living in now. You know, all roads lead to Rome, and you can choose what your Rome looks like, and that's the life that you're leading now. That you're going to have to look back on one day and say, well, did I do everything I could to live the best possible life? Or am I a disappointment to myself? And that's really what it comes down to. Mind other people's standards or society's standards or whatever. None of that matters. Only you can really know yourself. And taking the risks in the short term to end up where you're not going to be dissatisfied is should really be your only overarching goal. So in astrology, there's this alignment of the nodes. Okay, the south node and the north node. I'll save you the technical details of the astronomy uh, behind that, but essentially, what it is your compass. Your true south, your south node, is in your birth chart is where you're coming from, and it's those origin lineage type problems that you have to face and overcome and master before you can see your own opportunities as opportunities rather than impediments to your life and where you are now. That's the north node, those opportunities. So it's about learning about yourself, knowing yourself, and knowing about what you need in the face of many people and institutions which are uh, going to make it difficult on you. You're actually making it much more difficult on yourself by not listening to your intuition and not following through with those risks that you need to take to get to where you need to be anyway. Because either way, there's going to be struggle. It's better to face the struggle in the short term and take on those so-called risks uh, for the payoff later down the road, which is much larger in not hating your life and what you've done and having resentment toward yourself about having made the wrong decisions. And then, not to get too mystical, but therefore to delay your karmic conclusions until perhaps the next life. Solve those problems now. Follow your intuition. Thanks, Bill Burr. Cheers.